Hello everyone, this is Turin here, and today guys I'm here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle I'm going to be playing the Greenskins, and I will indeed be facing off against Norsca. So guys, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the army compositions, and we can go from there. So over here in the front line, I do kind of have a bit of a hybrid front line, so it's a mix of Orc Biggins and Black Orcs. So firstly, the Black Orcs I think are going to be a very good pick against Norsca. They're immune to psychology, number one, so against mammoths and all those different terrifying monsters they have, they're going to be pretty resilient. And secondly, a lot of the Norscan front lines consist of Berserkers and Marauders and things like that, so having the Black Orcs in the front line with their 110 armor I think is going to be a very, very good anchor. On top of that, I also think Biggins are quite a good choice. They do have an anti-large bonus of +8, which isn't huge, but if they do get engaged against like Skin Wolves, or if they're fighting some of the Famir Warriors, granted the Famir Warriors are very heavily armored, so it's still going to be tough for them, but nonetheless having an anti-large bonus I think is pretty useful in the Norscan matchups, even if they're kind of clipping at the legs of a mammoth. They do have 50 armor themselves and have very, very good combat stats. So that's pretty much it for my front line. It's just a whole bunch of Black Orcs and some Biggins over here. In the back line, I figured I was going to be dealing with mammoths because mammoths are very, very good at kind of routing infantry and are good against like low leadership factions like the Greenskins. So what I did as a contingency is I got a bunch of Goblin Archers. So I have one group here. I have the Rusty Heirs, of course, to sunder their armor. So 4 Goblin Archers, including the Rusty Heirs in total. So hopefully that'll give me enough pressure. And worst case scenario, I mean, even these small peppering amounts of arrows are going to be very good at like taking out Berserkers and, javelins and things like that. So 4 Goblin Archers in the back to kind of support my front line and just give me a little bit of utility. I do have the Durkit Squig. So for example, if the Norskins were to bring a very elite frontline troop that I really wanted to hammer down, I could of course engage with my Black Orcs or Biggins and then kind of slam them with these Durkit Squigs. So the Durkit Squigs do have an anti-infantry bonus of, let's see what it is, 9, which is not bad at all. And they also do have poison attack, so they can really, really kind of mitigate the strength of an enemy frontline troop. So to deal with big, scary threats, I do have some Orc Boy Biggins with anti-large and armor piercing. Definitely going to be somewhat useful at doing some shock damage against, the mobs of savagery and, kind of poking at the legs of mammoths and all that kind of good stuff. And then I decided to bring a little bit more heavy, kind of heavy weight over here. So I do have the Broken Tusk Mob. So these guys are the Regiment of Renown of the Orc Boy Biggins. They do have the, let's see, what do they have? I think they have Encourage, but aside from that, let's see. So we got 20 and 18 melee attack to defense, and here we have 28 and 25. So a pretty big difference there, and also 83 leadership to 77. So they're definitely going to give me a little bit more strength over there in that flank. For my leadership, I do have the new Orc War Boss. So he's new and improved. He does have poison attacks. So they removed the Spider Banner from Azag, and now just Wyvern mounts in general, whether it be an Orc War Boss or Azag, or, I guess those are the only two, but they all have poison no matter what now. So it's definitely quite strong, and it's going to be great. Having a big flying, mount like this is very good for cycle charging large units. So if they have like a Mammoth or, some Skin Wolves kind of engaged with something else, and you slam into the back of them, apply poison, Fear and Terror are kind of in the picture. It's very strong in my opinion. So that's pretty much it for my army. Over on the far side, I do have some Goblin Wolf Riders that I just like for scouting, and I figured if he had some javelins or something, I could kind of, flush him out. So guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the Norscan army over here. So in the front line, he does have some standard Marauders. These guys will do okay. I mean, granted, I think they would just get cut up by like Savage Orcs and different things like this, but where he's really putting all of his marbles is on the far side. So you can see his front line is kind of fodder-centric, with most of the punching power coming from 4 Berserkers. So the Berserkers probably would trade pretty efficiently with like Savage Orcs, and they might do well against Biggins even. But against Black Orcs, they're literally going to do nothing. Over here, he does also have some Skin Wolves, and this is really, really where he put all his resources. So he has 3 groups of Skin Wolves, which are very, very good against Orc Boy Biggins. They have an anti-large bonus, they have massive DPS against lightly armored targets, so they're going to definitely be pretty scary. And if my Orc War Boss, gets frostbitten and kind of caught by some of these Skin Wolves and Wolfric the Wanderer, it's going to be a very, very bad day. So he has these Skin Wolves. He also has 2 Norscan Ice Wolves, which are pretty strong themselves. I mean, 43 weapon strength on a mobile, a 95 speed unit that's this cheap is very, very powerful. And of course, having Frostbite is good. Wolfric here with the Hunter of Champions and Seafang. He does have Lord Metal with Transmutational Lead and the Hounds of Gehennas. So it looks like he was probably experimenting with some of those new spells. Well, they're not new, but they have been adjusted a little bit. He does also have the Marauder Ice Wolf Chariot, which if used correctly in the front line, if he like charges into my Biggins and pulls back or is being really aggressive towards my Black Orcs, that can be very tough to deal with. And then he also has the Beasts of Tashar. So the beasts in here, they definitely look pretty cool. They have an anti-large bonus themselves of +14, so that's actually, again, another decent tool against the Greenskins, in my opinion. And they're immune to psychology, it looks like. So that's pretty much it, guys. So without further ado, let the games begin. So my forces are advancing here. You can see I'm going to keep a relatively high and tight pocket because I saw how many Skin Wolves and everything he had, and I was like, oh man, I cannot hang with that. But the Skin Wolves are definitely looking pretty hungry over here. These guys actually have 95 speed against the 92 of my Goblin Wolf Rider. So he had a pretty good angle of pursuit here. So I really needed to pull those guys back because that's, 300 resources is still 300 resources. So I didn't want to lose these guys for free. So I decided to kind of, for a moment I pulled my Orc Boars and all those guys over there, and I was like, maybe I can save them. But I think I quickly realized that, he was either going to lose interest or they were going to get caught if he really wanted to. So You can see my Orc Boars, and I also pull, my Goblin Big Boss and my Orc War Boss, because I wanted to see if I could force a fight. But, in looking at it in retrospect, he had such power over here. 2 Skin Wolves plus Wolfric and just all this nasty business. But in the front line, it's going to be a massacre. Like, my infantry quality is so much better, and honestly, I think that the Greenskin Infantry Corps is going to be stronger than Norsca, most of the time. With Ere We Go and the Wa, like, you're just going to be able to beat them up in that respect. Where you're going to have to worry is, like, Mammoths and Skin Wolves and Throg and all that kind of stuff. I definitely would have liked to see Throg in this matchup. I think he would have been a little, I don't know about, because Greenskin missile pressure is decent, but Throg can honestly probably regenerate through a lot of this. But something else that's nice is the Big Uns do have an anti-large bonus on a little bit of armor, so they're going to make a very, very good tool at kind of dealing with the Skin Wolves. So you can see they're coming in here a little bit hog wild, but my opponent does do a tactical retreat. He's going to get all his forces together, and thankfully my Goblin Wolf Riders did get away, which was nice, so I can come back and use them later. So the fighting's about to begin here. You can see the Big Uns are going to engage in the front line. You can see the Norscan Ice Wolves coming in pretty hot, but they're going to get, quite a few of them are going to get lanced, and you could see those Ice Wolves go flying in the front line, just getting skewered by these wild boars over here. And also I do have the Big Uns coming in. The Big Uns are going to be very, very good against Skin Wolves. Granted, Skin Wolves will be able to get, a fair amount of kills on them, but the Big Uns, this is like, one of the elements in which they really shine against lightly armored, somewhat large targets. So they're getting in here. I am going to be popping a buff, and I think he's popping a buff as well, or a debuff. So I pop the Wa, he pops, and then I also pop Itchy Nuisance, but he also uses Transmutational Lead. So just a bunch of debuffs going down everywhere. But in the front line, guys, you can see it's just an extremely one-sided massacre. You can see the Squig Hoppers coming in here pretty hot, doing some decent damage on some of these Berserkers, and also the Goblin Arrows shooting over the top of the formation into all these like shirtless dudes. It's not looking good. And you can see the Marauders are already broken and routing. The Black Orcs over here against a group of Berserkers. The Berserkers got 14 kills. And, they cost almost as much as Black Orcs. I think they're, what are they, like 750 or something? So it's a 300 gold difference, but that is a huge bonus for me. And, I mean, you can see the Goblin Archers are even just generating massive value here. But in the back line, my opponent unfortunately did get his Beasts of Tashnar around the back, but his entire front line is collapsed. The Black Orcs just massacred them. But in the back, you can see the Goblins are going to get feasted on. Some of these Hounds of Tashar jumping in here, and he does get on the Rusty Arrows. It's a little bit too late. I definitely would have liked to have seen him, one of the tactical things that I think he could have done is came really aggressively with the Skin Wolves on this side, right? And then send the rest of your Ice Wolves around the other side. I wouldn't have had enough kind of a split attention. Well, granted, I would have been able to handle it in terms of, focus, but I wouldn't have had enough units to deal with that. That would have been really tough, and he would have been able to pretty much feast on all my Goblin Archers. But the Black Orcs and Big Uns are coming back, and you can see in the main fight up here, the Broken Tusk Mob is routing almost. The Orc Big Uns are in good shape with Sneaky Stabbing. Goblin Big Boss is good, and the Big Uns, of course, are just racking it up, just cutting through these Skin Wolves. So it's a very pitched fight, but it's going well, I would say. And you can see my Orc War Boss comes in, and he's diving periodically. I don't leave him for extended periods of time because it's pretty risky against Skin Wolves with their anti-large. Like, I'll be taking a lot of damage. But nonetheless, it's looking quite good. Wolfric the Wanderer is in here. He's pretty much full health. He's doing some good work kind of routing off my Big Uns. And I'm definitely going to lose this particular engagement for the most part. However, I still do have this pocket of Big Uns, and my entire infantry corps is coming in pretty angry. It looks like there's some sort of the Golden Hounds. Let's actually see how much damage this does. That's actually not bad. I feel like they changed like the kind of a coding on that because they're literally jumping and staying in a very local proximity, and that did some decent damage. That wasn't like a complete waste like it usually is in the past where it just like jumps away from the enemy formation. But the Big Uns up here on the high ground have pretty much smashed on these Skin Wolves. So you can see the Goblin Big Bosses here. My Goblin Wolf Riders also do come back. So right now it's pretty much just Wolfric versus the world. He's here in the front line, and he does have Itchy Nuisance, and my guy has very good AP values and poison, and honestly I think that Wolfric might actually lose to an Orc War Boss on a Wyvern. Like if you pop the potions and when he casts or the Potion of Toughness when he uses Hunter of Champions, and with the poison and everything, it feels like it would be a pretty rough matchup for the old boy Wolfric. So he's kind of surrounded right here. He's getting poisoned. You can see this massive green tide of infantry just coming in here. And some of these not Skin Wolves, but these Beasts of Tashar, the Norscan Warhounds in the back, they weren't getting into my Goblins. They got into the chicken coop, but for the most part, the Black Orcs have been able to kind of smash these guys back. And 110 armor is a lot. Against Greenskins, what I would probably do if I was playing Norsca is, number one, I would probably bring kind of a hybrid front line. So I would bring maybe the Brutes of the Hound, and then the rest of my front line would be the Norscan champions with great weapons, because they would be able to trade with the Black Orcs, number one, and number two, they would actually be pretty durable against Big Uns and things like that with their 80 armor. So that would be my one main critique of what I would change in the front line. Berserkers aren't as cost effective as you think against Greenskins. Like against Big Uns, like they got smashed against the Big Uns too. It seemed. I don't know. I didn't really get a good chance to look at that during that battle. Another thing, again, he needed more flank pressure. He needed to get some of these Hounds around the side and the back and really go after my Goblin Archers. They were just allowed to fight, unimpeded for the most part and just kind of pick off these guys. So that made that frontline engagement even worse. So I like the Skinwolf pick. I think the Skinwolves are a very good pick. I mean, they traded pretty efficiently. He did win that aspect of the fight, but where he really got smashed was in the infantry corps. Also, I would like to see some mammoth, kind of mammoth action going on, because mammoths would be able to kind of route off the orc board with Biggins and the terror and things like that. Like, mammoths are so good against chaos. They're great against vampire counts, and I think they would be good against greenskins. I have a feeling they would be pretty impactful in the front line. Like, a single mammoth charge against like a black orc, for example, would probably take them down to 70% of the HP, and then you could run over to the, the Biggins and route them off with terror. I just feel like it would be so much to deal with. Granted, I would have the missile pressure to deal with it. I think the shock damage would be worth it. And 2 Skin Wolves and 1 Norscan Ice Wolf is probably enough. You could cut this Skin Wolf, this one, and then cut the Beast of Tashar if you wanted to go with Mammoths. Then just get a few champions, cut a Berserker, and I honestly think you're in the right direction. Also, the Chariot didn't really do a whole lot, so just some minor tweaks, and those would be my suggestions. I'm actually going to try and get some Norskin versus Greenskin games, so if any of you guys want to play, shoot me a message on Steam. I know I'm not on there all the time, and most of the time when I'm recording, I am private. But if you guys would like to come and experiment with some builds, I'd certainly use the help, and I'd love to, just play some, one-on-one games with you, and get some good replays. So guys, thanks again for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this Greenskin versus Norsca showdown. Definitely some good work from the boys in the front line. They were showing who the true bosses are. But thanks again for watching, guys. We got more content coming soon, and have an excellent night.